came from a meeting with Congressman Ike Skelton and General Wesley Clark, and we talked about some of these issues.
Hi, my name is Rick, and I'd like to get back to what you want to do when you go back. Yeah. And the Democrats do hold the House. There's great concern that maybe the Federal Reserve is running amok. Is there anything in your plans, in your position as Congressman representing the 1st District, and in the leadership plan later with the Democrats, to rein in the Federal Reserve, or have oversight on the Federal Reserve, or auditing the Federal Reserve, or what's your thoughts on that area?
Yeah, I support a regular audit or annual audit of the Federal Reserve, and I voted for the Ron Paul amendment twice. Once in committee when we were doing the big Wall Street reform bill, and then once on the floor. So I support an annual audit of the Federal Reserve. Pardon?
What does the Democratic Party about doing that?
Well,
in the future, we're talking about if you're reelected, Congress is...
Well, we were successful in getting the legislation in the House. Now, what happened to it, I think Dodd in the Senate probably removed it. But I will support it again. And now, granted, I'm one vote on the banking committee, but I will stick with Ron Paul on that because I think it makes sense. Okay, I don't think any federal agency should not come under the sunshine. Okay, we need to be able to look at their operations also. When you think about what happened with TARP, the Congress passed TARP, which had a price tag of $700 billion, which I didn't vote for because it wasn't enough transparency. Okay, but yet when we passed that, simultaneously the Federal Reserve started handing out a separate pot of $700 billion. So, and I mean, and they were telling people, telling banks, you better take this money or else we'll punish you. I think that's wrong. You know, luckily people most of the money has been paid back with TARP, but when it was presented to me in October of 2008, I had no confidence that there was any accountability or transparency in TARP.
Back there.
I guess since we're talking about previously the military and then also fiscal matters,
yes.
I think at some point over the summer, Barney Frank spearheaded a commission or a group to look at ways to, I guess, strategically downsize the military budget. And I saw the report, and it was a pretty extensive report, looking at all of the military operations and just ways to streamline the process of how we, I guess, provide security for the United States around the world, and try and find ways that we can say, okay, we can shave some off here and have efficiency. But then I never heard anything as far as like progress or if anything will be implemented from the particular report. It's basically, I think, maybe a press release came out, there were a couple of news articles, and then now when I look at it, it still has the date from like June or May.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Here's what we face in Washington, in the nation's capital. You won't find many in Congress that want to even look for waste, fraud, and abuse in the military budget. You won't find many, but I'm one of them. And I want to find the waste, fraud, and abuse in Homeland Security too. It's there, okay? There's plenty of it there in the Department of Defense budget. Because we duplicate lots of things in these budgets. And if we're ever going to get serious about balancing the budget or bringing down the deficit, we're going to have to look at those two agencies. You can't treat them as sacred cows. Governor Holden and I spent so many years in the state legislature. And that's where I get my opinion that the budget should be balanced. because every year the state had to balance their budget. And we did it in a fiscally responsible way. When you look at what goes on, when they do the authorization as well as the appropriation of these budgets, it doesn't come down to fiscal soundness. It comes down to Pascagoula, Mississippi wants to continue to build submarines, whether the Navy wants them or not. It comes down to Groton, Connecticut, wanting to build this nuclear sub, whether the Navy ordered it or not. It comes down to Homeland Security as well as DOD, having all of these intelligence agencies that duplicate the same thing. They've got to be tripping over each other. It's so many. It's so much duplication. And so I contend there is waste, fraud, and abuse in a lot of government. But in those two agencies, you cannot treat them as sacred cows and say, we're doing this for the defense of the country. Well, you are not doing it just for the defense of the country. So let's stop there, okay? And so, I mean, Barney Frank's report will probably languish there until people in Washington, no matter what party, get serious about guarding the tax dollars.
What about earmarks? That's been all part of this discussion about being able to identify the waste or not identifying it, and should the earmarks be totally done away with, or should there be a process by which the members of Congress know what those earmarks are before they're voted on and not put in at 12:01 on the last night before the vote's taken? What's your feeling?
I list all of what I call my appropriations requests on my official website.
You don't call them earmarks.
We don't call them earmarks.
Plus pork.
But look, I get requests from all over my district. I get them from educational institutions, medical institutions, job training programs, local governments, the state of Missouri, MoDOT. They're all appropriation requests. And so I don't mind listing mine, and I do it every year. And I'm not trying to hide the fact, because people are not, they are not hiding the fact when they show up at my door saying, hey, I need $1 million for this, I need $100,000 for that. And so I'm willing to show it. And now when you talk about, in the overall scheme of the budget, it's less than 1% of all federal appropriation of the entire federal budget. I'm more concerned about these weapon systems that people are ordering that we pay billions for that the military doesn't even want. I mean, those are real earmarks to me. Those are the things that we need to look at. Those are what we should be concerned about as taxpayers, and should try to guard those tax dollars, and at least ask the right questions. So I support it. I support appropriations requests.
Well, and I think the public can understand your position much better than the position of people on the extreme, on either side of that issue. I think the transparency issue is one that is critical and been forgotten. I've got one last question.
Hi, my name.
And then I'll take another one and we'll go over here. So Alex is playing that.
My name's Eileen, and I have to go back to health care. One of the reforms was supposed to give people more access to the high-risk pool. About a year ago, before health care reform was passed, people were telling me they were asked to pay $1,000 a month premiums. Since health care reform has passed, people are telling me they can't get health care from that high-risk pool for less than $1,000 a head.
here's what I know about it, is that January 1, the federal government will subsidize the high-risk pools by state or region. They are working on, they're coming up with the rules and regulations now. My office can direct you to more information on it. We will be glad to assist you and direct you to the high-risk insurance pool for Missouri. And I know we've been briefed on it. It escapes me now. But we can supply you with more details.
People have been asking the last 30 days.
And you know what also happened, Governor, through this healthcare debate, a lot of the Republican ideas were incorporated into it, with the thinking that this administration would pick up Republican votes on the way. Well, none of that has happened. And on most issues that has been the case. There's been no willingness to sit down and compromise. It's been, we're going to say no, and that's going to be it. And they think they're trying to run out the clock in order to beat this president, in order to take control of the House and the Senate. I give the American voter more credit. I think they can see through this thinly veiled disguise of this claiming to be so concerned about budgets and deficits.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's maybe a follow-up to Rick's earlier question, and I think you staked out a position regarding not wanting to walk the plank. My name's Jim.
Okay.
Back in healthcare debate, the House seemed to pretty quickly abandon single payer as part of the debate, took it off the table. Recently, Pelosi decided not to schedule a vote on the Bush tax cuts before the election. And maybe it'll come up after the election, but I'm not confident about that. So really my question is this: despite your having staked out the position of not wanting to walk the plank, has the House lost its courage?
I don't think so. I think what will happen is on November 3rd, we will begin to assess the political landscape. And then the president, who is our leader, will stake out a strategy for November 3rd till November of 2012. And he will now what I'm getting indications of is that he will start governing more if the margins are too narrow to get legislation through. He will start governing by executive order, through rules and regulations, through their secretaries, through really the executive branch fiat of government. Whether that's the best way to do it or not, I don't think so. But no, the House has not lost its courage. Now you may have to find a new tack as far as how you get some of your goals accomplished. Look, the House is a microcosm of America. The people that make up the House are a snapshot of who we are as a country. You come from all the regions. You represent your district, and usually your vote reflects the wishes of your district. What happens is you have members who represent moderate to conservative districts, mostly in the South, and in some Rust Belt states. And they are the ones who will join a caucus called the Blue Dog